Every morning before sunrise, while the world around him slumbered, 16-year-old Ethan Carter diligently scrubbed the marble floors of a grand mansion, his small frame a silhouette against the opulence. With each stroke of his rag, he fought the relentless grip of poverty, propelled only by his fierce determination to rise above his circumstances. Then, in a moment that felt like a whisper from fate, a letter arrived, an acceptance from a prestigious university in London. But the elation quickly faded as the reality of financial constraints loomed like a dark cloud, casting doubt over his dreams.
I told you not to decide what's possible too early. Ethan smiled through tears. For the first time in years, hope felt real, but hope alone could not pay university fees. The next challenge arrived almost immediately. Applications, scholarships, interviews, financial documents. The process was overwhelming. Yet Ethan persisted. Every rejection letter hurt. Every unanswered application deepened his doubts. Still, he refused to stop. Then one rainy October afternoon, a large envelope arrived. The sender's address immediately caught his attention. A prestigious university in London. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was an acceptance letter. He had been offered admission. Ethan read it once, then twice, then 3 times. The words remained unchanged. He had been accepted. His dream was becoming reality. But as he continued reading, his excitement faded. A critical detail appeared near the bottom. Although he had received partial financial support, significant expenses remained uncovered. Accommodation, books, living costs, transport, thousands of pounds. He did not have thousands. He sat silently beside the window as rain tapped against the glass. The opportunity of a lifetime stood before him, yet it remained frustratingly out of reach. For days he searched desperately for solutions, additional scholarships, part-time jobs, charitable organizations, anything, everything. Then one evening his phone rang. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar London number. Ethan hesitated before answering. Calm voice introduced herself. "Good evening, Ethan. My name is Margaret Wilson from the University Financial Aid Office." His heart immediately raced. Why was she calling? Had there been a mistake? Was his admission being withdrawn? The woman continued. "We've reviewed your circumstances, and there may be an additional opportunity available to you." Ethan gripped the phone tightly. An opportunity? What kind of opportunity? Before she could explain further, the call suddenly disconnected. The signal vanished. The line went dead. Ethan stared at the phone. The silence felt unbearable. What was she about to tell him? Would it change everything, or destroy the future he had fought so hard to build? Outside, thunder rolled across the darkening sky. And for the first time since receiving his admission letter, Ethan feared that his greatest challenge was only beginning. The night Ethan Carter received the mysterious call, sleep became impossible. He sat beside the window of his tiny apartment, staring into the darkness while rain streamed down the glass. Again and again, he replayed the conversation in his mind. "There may be an additional opportunity available to you." What opportunity? Why had the call ended so suddenly? And most importantly, would it be enough to save his university dream? By morning, Ethan could barely contain his anxiety. The moment the university offices opened, he called back. After several transfers and a long wait, the familiar voice finally answered. Margaret Wilson speaking. Ethan immediately introduced himself. There was a brief pause, then her voice softened. "Mr. Carter, I'm glad you called. We have reviewed your financial records and personal circumstances." Ethan held his breath. "We would like to offer you a hardship scholarship." His heart nearly stopped. A scholarship. For several seconds he couldn't speak. "Won't cover everything," Margaret continued, "but it will significantly reduce your costs." Tears gathered in Ethan's eyes. After years of disappointment, rejection, and struggle, someone was finally giving him a chance, a real chance. For the first time, London seemed possible, yet fate wasn't finished testing him, not even close. 2 months later, Ethan arrived in London carrying 2 suitcases and a heart full of hope. The city overwhelmed him immediately. Towering buildings stretched toward the sky. Crowds moved endlessly through busy streets. Red buses rushed past, sirens echoed in the distance. Everything felt bigger, faster, richer, and more intimidating. London was nothing like home. As he stepped out of the station, he felt very small, very alone. But he reminded himself why he was there. This was his opportunity, his future, his escape. No matter how difficult things became, he would not waste it. The first few weeks were brutal. The hardship scholarship helped, but money remained painfully scarce. After paying for accommodation and books, very little remained. Most days Ethan survived on cheap supermarket sandwiches and instant noodles. Sometimes he skipped meals entirely. His classmates lived completely different lives. Many came from wealthy families. They arrived in expensive cars, carried the latest laptops, talked casually about vacations in Greece, Spain, and Italy. Ethan smiled politely whenever conversations drifted toward money. He never told them the truth. That some nights he went to bed hungry, that he counted every coin before entering a grocery store, that one financial emergency could end everything. Instead, he focused on his studies. While others attended parties, Ethan remained in the library. While others socialized, he revised lecture notes. Hour after hour, day after day, his determination became legendary among professors. But determination alone could not solve every problem. By his second year, financial pressure intensified. Rent increased. Textbooks became more expensive. Living costs continued rising. The scholarship remained unchanged. Soon Ethan found himself searching desperately for additional work. Eventually, he secured a job cleaning offices at night. The schedule was exhausting. Classes during the day, work throughout the evening, study after midnight, sleep whenever possible. The routine slowly consumed him. His body weakened. Dark circles appeared beneath his eyes. Headaches became frequent, yet he refused to quit. Because quitting meant failure, and failure was not an option. One freezing December night, Ethan finished cleaning an office building near Canary Wharf. The streets were nearly empty, snow drifted through the air. As he walked toward the train station, he noticed something unusual. A black luxury car sat parked near the curb. Its headlights were off, its engine silent. At first he ignored it. Then he heard shouting, a man's voice. Panicked, desperate, Ethan turned. The rear door of the vehicle suddenly opened. A middle-aged businessman stumbled onto the pavement. He clutched his chest, then collapsed hard. Several pedestrians froze. Nobody moved. For a split second, everyone simply stared, including Ethan. Then instinct took over. He sprinted forward. The man struggled to breathe. His face had turned pale. Something was terribly wrong. Ethan remembered basic emergency procedures from a school course years earlier. Without hesitation, he called emergency services and followed their instructions. Minutes later, paramedics arrived. The businessman was rushed to hospital. Before leaving, one of the paramedics looked at Ethan. If you hadn't acted so quickly, this could have ended very differently. Ethan nodded silently, then walked away. He never learned the man's name and soon forgot about the incident entirely. At least he thought he did. Months passed. University became increasingly demanding. Assignments multiplied. Exams approached. Pressure mounted. Every day felt like a race against time. Then came the most important examination period of his academic career. The results would determine his final classification. His future depended on them. Employers would scrutinize those grades. Scholarships for postgraduate studies would depend on them. Everything depended on them, everything. So Ethan worked harder than ever. For weeks he barely left the library. Coffee became a necessity, sleep became a luxury. He pushed himself beyond reasonable limits. Then disaster struck. Again, 3 days before his final examination, Ethan received devastating news. The company employing him as a cleaner had lost a major contract. Several staff members were being dismissed, including him. Just like that, his only source of income vanished. Gone, completely gone. Ethan sat alone in his room staring at the termination letter. The familiar fear returned, the same fear he had known as a teenager, the same fear of losing everything. What if he couldn't pay rent? What if he couldn't complete university? What if years of sacrifice ended now? For the first time in many years, doubt entered his mind, real doubt. Perhaps life simply wasn't meant to be fair. Perhaps success belonged to other people. Perhaps no matter how hard he worked, he would always struggle. The thoughts haunted him through the night. But when morning arrived, Ethan made a decision. He would finish. No matter what happened afterward, he would finish. The examinations began. Each paper tested not only knowledge but endurance. Students emerged exhausted. Some cried, some celebrated, others panicked. Ethan simply kept moving forward, one exam at a time, one day at a time, one battle at a time. Finally, after weeks of pressure, the last examination ended. The hardest chapter of his life seemed complete, or so he believed, because a far greater surprise was waiting. A week later, Ethan returned to his accommodation. The building manager stopped him. "There was someone looking for you." Ethan frowned. "Looking for me?" The manager handed him a business card. The name printed on it meant nothing to him, yet the company logo was famous, one of the largest financial consulting firms in Britain. His confusion deepened. Why would someone from such a company want to meet him? The manager shrugged. They said it was important. Ethan stared at the card. His pulse quickened. Something about the situation felt strange, unexpected, mysterious. That evening, curiosity finally overcame him. He dialed the number. The call connected almost immediately. A woman answered. "Mr. Carter, we've been trying to reach you." I asked why. There was a brief silence. Then she spoke words that changed everything. "Someone very influential has recommended you." Ethan's heart skipped. "Recommended me?" "Yes." "Who?" Another pause long enough to make his anxiety soar. Then came the answer. "Businessman whose life you helped save last winter." Ethan froze. The memory rushed back instantly. The man who had collapsed beside the luxury car, the ambulance, the snowy night. Could it really be connected? Before he could ask another question, the woman continued. "He would like to meet you personally." Ethan stared into the darkness outside his window. 1,000 possibilities raced through his mind. Why did the businessman want to see him? What did he know, and how could a single act of kindness from months ago suddenly become important now? The answers were waiting, but so was a future Ethan could never have imagined. And as he prepared for the meeting, he had no idea that the next chapter of his life was about to begin. A mysterious meeting, a life-changing opportunity, graduation with distinction, a high-paying career, and a shocking promotion that will place Ethan among the most powerful executives in Britain. The morning of the meeting arrived cold and grey. Ethan barely slept the previous night. The business card lay on his desk, and every time he looked at it, his mind filled with questions. Why would a wealthy businessman want to see him? What could he possibly offer? And why all? Ethan had done nothing extraordinary. He had simply helped a stranger in distress. Yet something deep inside him whispered that this meeting could change everything, or ruin everything. He boarded the train to central London and watched the city rush past the windows. Towering skyscrapers pierced the clouds. Busy professionals hurried through crowded streets. Luxury cars lined the roads. The world Ethan was entering seemed completely different from the one he knew. When he finally arrived at the company's headquarters, he froze. The building was enormous, a gleaming glass tower standing among London's financial giants. For a moment, self-doubt returned. Perhaps there had been a mistake. Perhaps he wasn't supposed to be here. But then he remembered every hardship he had survived, the freezing mornings, the hunger, the cleaning jobs, the sleepless nights. He took a deep breath and walked inside. The reception area looked more like a luxury hotel than an office. Marble floors reflected sparkling lights. Employees moved confidently through the building. Everything screamed success. A receptionist greeted him warmly. "Mr. Carter, we've been expecting you." That surprised him. Expecting him, she escorted him to a private elevator. The elevator climbed rapidly, 20 floors, 30, 40. Finally, the doors opened. A secretary led him toward an elegant office overlooking the London skyline. The door opened. Inside stood the businessman, the same man Ethan had helped months earlier, only now he looked healthy and energetic. The businessman smiled. "Ethan Carter." Ethan nodded. Man extended his hand. "My name is Richard Hamilton." Ethan shook it. Richard gestured toward a chair. "Sit." For several moments they spoke casually, then Richard leaned forward. "Owe you my life." Ethan looked uncomfortable. "Only did what anyone would have done." Richard smiled. "No, most people watched. You acted." Silence filled the room. Then Richard continued. "Spent months learning about you." Ethan's stomach tightened. Learning about him, Richard explained how he had quietly investigated Ethan's background, his academic achievements, his hardships, his determination, his work ethic, everything. The businessman seemed genuinely impressed. Finally, Richard said something unexpected. "I want to help you." Ethan blinked. "Help me?" Richard nodded. "Your professors speak highly of you. Your grades are exceptional. And your character is even more impressive." Ethan struggled to process the words. Richard continued. "When you graduate, I'd like you to join my company." Room suddenly felt silent. Join the company, one of Britain's most respected consulting firms. It seemed impossible, almost unreal, but Richard wasn't finished. "There is one condition." Ethan's heart raced. "A condition." "What kind of condition?" Richard smiled mysteriously. "You must first graduate with distinction." Challenge consumed Ethan. From that day forward, he worked harder than ever before. His final year became a relentless battle against exhaustion. Every lecture mattered, every assignment counted, every examination carried enormous weight. The goal was clear: distinction. Anything less would mean losing the opportunity of a lifetime. Weeks turned into months. The pressure intensified. Then came graduation season. The final results were about to be released. Students across campus waited nervously. Families gathered. Celebrations were planned. Yet Ethan felt only anxiety. Years of sacrifice had led to this moment, one result, one outcome, one future or another. When the results were finally published, Ethan could barely bring himself to look. His hands trembled, his heart pounded. Slowly he scanned the list. Then he found his name and froze. For several seconds he simply stared, unable to believe what he was seeing. At the top of the page beside his name were the words, "First-class distinction, the highest academic classification, the very best result." A wave of emotion overwhelmed him. His vision blurred, tears filled his eyes, memories flooded back. The tiny apartment, the househelp job, the hunger, the loneliness, the sacrifices, every painful step had led here, every struggle had mattered. For the first time in years, Ethan allowed himself to cry, not from sadness, but from victory. 3 weeks later, Ethan entered Richard Hamilton's company as a graduate analyst. The salary alone felt unbelievable. It was more money than he had ever imagined earning. For the first time in his life, he could pay bills without fear, buy food without counting coins, sleep without worrying about eviction. The relief was immense. Yet Ethan refused to become complacent. While others treated the position as a destination, he treated it as a beginning. He arrived early, left late. Volunteered for difficult projects, solved problems others avoided. Managers quickly noticed. His reputation spread. By the end of his first year, senior executives were already discussing his future. Some called him brilliant, others called him relentless, many simply called him extraordinary. Then came another turning point. A major client threatened to terminate a multi-million-pound contract. The company faced serious losses. Several experienced managers attempted to solve the problem. All failed. The situation grew worse. Eventually, the issue landed on Ethan's desk. Many believed he would fail too. After all, he was still young, still inexperienced, still relatively unknown. But Ethan approached the challenge differently. For weeks he analyzed reports, interviewed stakeholders, reviewed financial records, worked through countless nights. Finally, he discovered something everyone else had missed. A hidden inefficiency costing the client millions every year. The solution was simple, yet nobody had seen it. When Ethan presented his findings, executives were stunned. The client implemented his recommendations, the contract was saved, and the company earned millions. Suddenly, Ethan Carter became impossible to ignore. Promotions followed rapidly: analyst, senior analyst, manager, director. Each new role brought greater responsibility, greater influence, greater success. Yet he remained humble. He never forgot where he came from, never forgot the freezing mornings, never forgot the empty stomach. Never forgot the tiny apartment. Those memories fueled him. They reminded him that success was not guaranteed. It was earned every day. 5 years later, Ethan stood before the glass windows of a corner office overlooking London, the same city that had once terrified him, the same city where he had struggled to survive. Now it stretched beneath him like a kingdom of opportunity. A knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in." Door opened. Richard Hamilton entered, older now, a little grayer, but smiling. He carried a folder. "Ethan," he said, "there's something we need to discuss." Tone caught Ethan's attention. Richard sat across from him. For several moments he said nothing. Then he slid the folder across the desk. Ethan opened it. His eyes widened. The document contained a proposal from the company's board, a recommendation, a promotion, not just any promotion, the highest position below the board itself, Chief Operating Officer, one of the most powerful executive roles in the company. Ethan looked up in disbelief. Richard smiled. "Earned it?" For a moment, words failed him. The poor househelp from northern England, the orphan, the struggling student, the young man who once worried about buying food, now stood on the verge of becoming one of Britain's top executives. The journey seemed impossible, yet it was real, every moment of it. Months later, Ethan officially assumed the role. Newspapers covered the story. Business magazines praised his rise. Industry leaders admired his achievements. But the recognition mattered less than one simple truth. He had survived. He had overcome it. He had won. Not because life was fair. Not because luck had always favored him. But because he refused to quit when quitting would have been easier. One evening, after another successful day at the office, Ethan stood alone, overlooking London's skyline. The city lights sparkled endlessly. Far below, thousands of people hurried through their own struggles, their own dreams, their own battles. He thought about the frightened teenager he once was. The boy cleaning floors before sunrise. The boy who feared the future. The boy who refused to surrender. A smile crossed his face. Because that boy had never truly disappeared. He still lived inside him. Still reminding him of where he started. Still reminding him of what was possible. The winter winds had once threatened to break him. Instead, they had made him stronger. And as the lights of London shimmered against the night sky, Ethan Carter finally understood something profound. The greatest victories are not won by the strongest people. They are won by those who keep moving forward when every reason to stop stands in their way. Are you going through a lot, just like Ethan Carter? Have you ever been challenged with life difficulties? Share your experience in the comments section. Subscribe to this channel for more exciting stories.